Hi, welcome to the show. This is Dr. Sylvia Kratzer, and I want to address a topic that's on everyone's mind the last couple of weeks for sure, before the election, post the election, looking into the future. There's so much anxiety and fear even that people experience, and some people react in ways that may be, introspective. Others are elated, of course, and but in either case, there's a lot of energy floating around, and some people are very angry or kind of on the attack, or feeling depressed and even anxiety as we head into the future. And that's not even election related. That is something that a lot of people experience at the end of a year, and as we head into a new year. Take two. Welcome to the show. This is Dr. Sylvia Klein, and I would like to address a topic that is on many people's mind as we head into the end of the year and the next year, and that is anxiety. Of course, we just went through an election. There were pre, post, during election anxieties, and people are processing a lot, whether you're elated or not, wondering about the future. But whether it's an election year or any time of the end of a year, people typically experience a lot of anxiety. The sense, did I accomplish enough this year? What will the future hold? And that could be on a political scale, personal scale, economic scale. And the typical response often is, especially in November, December, even into the January, first few weeks of January, is to cocoon, to hide, to go into hibernation, out of almost feeling that there isn't much one can do anyhow, that there's a sense of hiding. And actually there's something good. Sometimes you have to lay fallow and kind of let things rest and regenerate. But in this regeneration period, there's also new growth. So are you letting anxiety hold you hostage, or can you use anxiety for your next breakthrough, to get ahead of the curve, in a sense, to catch the new wave of where you're heading towards? And anxiety is something that, of course, everyone has at some point in their life. But what we make out of it, sometimes anxiety becomes the spark and the fuel to carry us forward, but many other times it becomes a paralysis that holds us back and becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I wanted to address in particular how the different brand story heroines address anxiety in different ways. Step 2, see anxiety as your ally, not your enemy. Because once you realize, first of all, that outside forces don't determine who you are and what your future is, it's also important to not beat yourself up for the anxiety you may be feeling, or direct it towards others in retaliation of some sort or another. Instead, anxiety is really the fuel to unlock your powers and to navigate a vision of the future that is of your own making. In fact, anxiety is a guidepost for us to show us exactly where changes need to be made and how to create what we truly want. Without anxiety, we just loll along for the ride and don't take decisive or inspired action. So it's really a guide for what truly matters to us. So as you know, I favor individualized and personalized approaches, whether that be in business or branding, wealth creation, or dealing with your emotions such as anxiety. So let's see, take a look at how the different story heroines or archetypes best deal with anxiety. The first one, Maverick, is actually the one who thrives most on anxiety. It's like champagne bubbles to the Maverick. They thrive on change, and anxiety is the fuel that propels them forward into even more unknown territories because they love exploring. They are the explorers of olden times that go out into the unknown to find and explore new worlds. And they actually, more than any archetype, get terribly bored and feel suffocated when nothing moves forward. Being stuck feels like death to the Maverick. If there's change, and even the type of anxiety change, they will move forward and often break through barriers like no other archetype. However, they can sometimes go overboard, and in their desire to kind of, be that in the stock market, be that in any kind of endeavor, business endeavor, or in changing or transforming their life, be headlong heading into change without the proper planning and without plan B. So they often can burn their bridges and therefore perhaps find themselves out on a limb and haven't properly planned where they're heading. So yes, they are, for them, anxiety and change is rocket fuel, and they can achieve amazing things by going into the unknown, because I sometimes liken it to an explorer with the machete in the jungle. They don't have to see it yet. They will make a way where no one else has seen a way. And they often can show us that there is a way where we, the rest of us, stuck in anxiety, because once the Maverick creates that first path, others can follow suit. The Maverick, though, is not too concerned about their followers, because if they were, like the ruler is, it would hamper and hinder them in their endeavor. They are not nurturers. They are not people who have to worry about those who follow along behind them. They have to put all their energy into exploring new pathways. And sometimes others beat them up for being perhaps selfish, when sometimes selfishness is a good way when your companion would only hinder you, where the Maverick has this unique ability to create paths into territories that no one else has been able to do so before. The good news is that once the Maverick becomes aware of their unique strengths and their potential blind spots, they can plan for that. Perhaps they have found themselves way out on a limb, making changes, and then having burnt their bridges, don't have a retreat. So sometimes it behooves the Maverick not to beat themselves up for their reckless risk-taking or for their unwillingness to take a group of others with them and being accused of being selfish. Rather to know that's their strengths, but at the same time plan a route B, plan a strategic outlay of the map where they're going, and deciding, okay, I'm going to headlong move into this new change, but so as to create a certain boundary around them. That is not something the Maverick likes to do naturally, but they can work with it if they see it as a map that allows them to move forward, but also puts in certain boundaries so they can know they're not totally off the cliff into the unknown, where they might be getting lost. So the Maverick, our first archetype, great archetype for change, and certainly one that shouldn't beat themselves up for their amazing ability and willingness to take risk, and shouldn't beat themselves up when they're accused of being egocentric or selfish, because as a maverick, that is your strength. But then also plan a retreat, or plan B, a way out, or don't burn your bridges, because sometimes you need that. Now, the accumulator is perhaps the exact opposite of the maverick. Accumulators thrive on stability, tradition, and the known. For them, change is always anxiety producing. It's not something that the accumulator deals well with. But change will also allow them to create more of the wealth they so steadily accumulate, create more of stability if they plan wisely. There's also an exercise that is very useful for the accumulators, where they look back over their life and see how they navigated changes and periods of instability, and therefore see how throughout the change they, more than any of the archetypes, were able to build steadily and create stability throughout the changes. So they have a sense of trusting that their unique abilities will not let them down, and that they indeed can create more of what they want, namely stability, predictability, a sense of legacy, by moving forward into the end of this year and the new year. Which is of course something all of the archetypes would benefit from, to look back over the year, maybe the last 5 years, and see and take a look at your accomplishments. So often we plan for the future. Everyone says, new year, what's your plan? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And what we can all learn from the accumulator is look at the past, the stability the past has brought us, and how the past is indeed an indicator that may ally and channel our anxiety, because we can realize that we can indeed move forward and move forward steadily and with stability, and creating value, which is so important to the accumulator. So the accumulator's secret weapon in the face of anxiety and fears is to create plans, backup strategies, and perhaps most important, because the accumulator lacks the small action, the overseeable action, to create a daily routine. While mavericks or alchemists, for instance, don't thrive necessarily on routines, the accumulator does. The accumulator loves the predictability, and when long-term goals and visions seem unstable and produce anxiety because there are certain elements outside their control, the daily routines and rituals, the daily planning will create that stability inside the accumulator to help them move forward. And ultimately it's also their big strengths, because when they strategize, they come up with new ideas. When they think through the details, every step of their routine and of their daily lives, it creates in them the ability to navigate turbulent waters. There's one famous lady, she created $1 billion empire after she had just gotten bankrupt with her previous business. She now accredits her success to a simple trick. Not only does she do it, but everyone in her company is assigned to do the same thing. She has monthly planners she gives out to her employees just for that purpose. And what it is, and you may have heard of it before, but to the accumulator that's immensely reassuring, and that is every hour is mapped out ahead of time. And she goes one step further. So every hour she cuts it off. She has it planned out in her diary, everything by the hour. And then as each hour goes by, she cuts it off and she feels a tremendous sense of satisfaction at the end of the day. And she says that method is the one that helped her create a $1 billion empire out of nothing, out of bankruptcy, in fact. So if you're an accumulator, or for anyone, it could be for anyone a great exercise to do every week, every hour, to pre-plan, and then as the hour goes by and you have done it, cut it off. And if, of course, something derails you, you still cut it off and perhaps make a note that you used the time in a different way. So time and the control of time is so important to the accumulator, and they can thrive on it. So it can be a little bit over-controlling, perhaps, to all the employees in her company. But if people are given a certain sense of freedom, that control, again, can ally and can channel anxieties and give you the steady forward momentum, where the anxiety is outside because you have a clear plan hour by hour. The ruler is the ultimate empire builder, and she or he thrive on building the empire, and they have to have a large vision, and they have to see the map that they're conquering and expanding. They are expansion-minded. So unknown elements, from the outside, it's kind of fuel for them to ride into battle. And unlike the maverick, the ruler sees everyone in the empire as part and parcel of their own identity. So for them, when they ride in battle, they have the whole team behind them. So the team building and to the expansion of the empire is very important to the ruler. They also are planners, but they're again more driven by conquering, by expansion, by ruling. And in the negative, it can be too much control perhaps, but in the positive, the ruler is really not a tyrannical ruler. The ruler is someone who can bring teams behind them and lift them all up together. And he may ride ahead with the banner, and everyone comes behind him. And the important thing is, the ruler is very susceptible if team members undermine her or work against her. That's perhaps her biggest weakness, because the ruler is very loyal to their own followers, to those within their own empire. Again, it's part of their own identity. It's like cutting off their own hand if someone in their own empire undermines them. So for them to create stability and anxiety is to make sure there's loyalty and unity within the realm, within the empire. So one thing that is important for the ruler is to call together her generals, her lieutenants, and have a team meeting and strategize how the whole empire, the whole realm, the whole company, or perhaps your own family, can pull together on one vision that they can create, and thus create an expansionary vision. And change, of course, is the wave, the cloud on which the ruler can ride to expand their empire. And expanding the empire doesn't mean they're taking away something from someone else. It's quite the opposite, like the famous example, the pie. If the pie is only so big, if I take a bigger slice, the other person gets a smaller slice. But that's not how the ruler operates. When the ruler expands the empire, they make the pie larger for everyone. So everyone gets a bigger piece of the pie, and even the ones outside the realm tend to get bigger pies, because if they expand their company, they then can have people that supply them with elements that they pay for, and so everyone benefits. So the expansionary vision of the ruler is not at the expense of others, but to increase the realm for everyone inside his or her own realm, but even for the other realms, because they get rich when that empire gets rich. So there's a big cautionary tale to not see the ruler as someone who takes away something from someone else, but in fact a great beneficial element in society. And so the ruler can work through anxiety by bringing the generals, the lieutenants, and the entire team with them and strategically map out the expansionary vision they are so excellent at. Other than the maverick, the alchemist is perhaps the second most important archetype that thrives on change. Change is the alchemist's game, but differently than the maverick that rides off on the edge of the cliff. The alchemist transforms things that are already existing, but creates something new out of it. So they can create from dirt, they create gold. From anxiety, they create fuel. From change, they create new stability. Like the proverbial chemist, they bring together different elements and create something new. However, sometimes the alchemist doesn't understand their own power. It seems like they're magically creating change, like the magic wand, and sometimes it works. Other times, though, like in the lab, the proverbial chemical lab where the mad scientist creates a new concoction and it blows up in her or his face. That can be part of the alchemist's experience. But in general, they can create changes like no one else, and they're amazingly adept, super savvy when it comes to creating new connections from things that already exist. They magically create the new. So for them, change will be the propellant to really bring out something new, something that has never been seen before. And actually, for them, the change is what makes them tick. How they can deal with perhaps letting it all blow up in their faces is oftentimes it's good to have a second person on their side that creates stability, such as an accumulator. Either in themselves, if their first archetype is an alchemist and the second is an accumulator, it will help them stabilize. Or they can have a family member or right-hand person who's creating this stability. But the alchemist is the ultimate transforming artist that creates something out of nothing, creates some value out of fear, and transforms anxiety into assets. So if you're an alchemist, you probably already have something cooking and brewing in your alchemist laboratory as you head into the new year, and it can turn into something spectacular that benefits you and everyone around you that is in your orbit. The romantic thrives on comfort, beauty, well-being, leisurely activities, and while they can create value for others, for themselves, and by providing this for others, luxury experiences, comforting moments, the romantic is not just the lazy person they are sometimes accused of, but they can create great wealth by exuding this sense of well-being, beauty, luxury for others. When it comes to anxiety, the romantic is most likely to retreat into their little cocoon and hide. They need this comfort of the luxury experience, and if there's anxiety outside, they might even go overboard and just hide or just overindulge in certain areas, food or other comforting experiences. And so one of the things that the romantic can learn from anxiety is to perhaps use it again to expand the feeling of luxury and to go and create something of great comfort to others. So, for instance, they can create retreats where others as well can feel the comfort of the cocoon. The cocooning is something that can isolate the romantic, but it can also provide the sense of comfort to others, whether it's a class they provide to others, where everyone feels like the outside world with all of the anxieties is out there, and inside it's a pure world of beauty, relaxation, well-being, and this way to kind of let go of the anxieties by coming back into the center of well-being, the core of luxury that is so at the fingertips of the romantic. They often see anxiety through a very emotional lens though, so they can sometimes go overboard if they're knocked off their comfort zone. So for the romantic, it is important to always allow themselves to dive back into their comfort zone, to perhaps take a break from social media, from the news, from other people, and from the daily grind and the anxieties of the political world, or of perhaps even planning. They like to plan, but they like to plan as a way to feel comfort and to feel relaxed. And of course the holiday season is such a great time for the romantic, because they're so apt at creating an atmosphere of opulence, of enjoyment. And so the holiday season can be a great, great time, the end of the year, for the romantic. January comes though, and sometimes there's a letdown, like a certain sense of emptiness for the romantic. And so it's important for them to also create a vision for the coming year, for the coming months, where they feel they can be centered in themselves, calm, relaxed, instead of frazzled or coming to a sudden halt as the new year arrives and they haven't properly found a new way to be in this core of the romantic energy. The connector deals with anxiety by gathering friends, allies, support, communities around them. That gives the connector stability and a sense of dealing with anxieties, because for the connector, it's never just themselves. For them, it's the community. They need community and thrive on community, friends, loved ones to surround them. This could be personal friends or family, but can be also connection through a common experience or a common aim. So whether it's politically, they will want to be surrounded by like-minded people, people who think similar to themselves. The potential downfall is a certain echo chamber, that they so reinforce their own thinking that it's sometimes the problem that they create a us versus them mentality, because for the connector, the us experience is where they thrive. And of course, it's a wonderful ability to create connection, and so many people, especially at the end of the year, need connections. They will be the ones that will create that Thanksgiving table where everyone who doesn't have family is invited. They will create a sense of community, sometimes outside their own echo chamber. In the best sense, they create community from different walks of life rather than just within their own groupings. And in so far, they can also create almost a movement, and a movement that is something that can bear well into the future, in the new year, and create changes that way. And for the connector, change is not something they thrive on, but it's like the buffer of the people around them allows them to bob around like a ball along the waves of change, and feel that they are insulated from the stress and anxiety, because the group, the speaking to others, elevates them, buoys them up and makes them feel that no matter what the future brings, they have their friends, and their friends will always be there for them. And since they are such great friends themselves, they're right, because people will be loyal to them and very much appreciate that the connector creates such sense of community and belonging in a time when anxiety may feel like some people are all alone or out from themselves. The connector rides against this and creates something so beautiful for everyone in their orbit. The nurturer deals with anxiety by caretaking. They feel a sense of purpose, a sense of stability, a sense of belonging, and a sense of security when they nurture others. And again, at the time of the holidays, of course, whether that's a big feast, a beautiful experience, or nurturing the lost, caring for the homeless, saving pets in need, all of those are things the nurturer thrives on, and that gives them a sense of insulation against the anxiety, because as long as they can care for someone else, they themselves feel cared for. Sometimes they go overboard and frazzle themselves and basically empty themselves out into something else, a cause, a person, a group of people, and at the expense of themselves. So for the nurturer, it's very important as they approach the end of the year and the new year to self-care. So often they care for everyone else, and it doesn't come natural for them to care for themselves rather than for others. But there's the nurturing instinct can be also directed towards oneself, especially, of course, if the nurturer perhaps has a romantic in their orbit or has a romantic as a second archetype. So this, where the nurturing aspect goes into self-care, it's very important for the nurturer to not completely self-abandon, which is the potential downfall. And so, especially during times of anxiety, the nurturer will sometimes overgive, because it's their way of dealing with anxiety, their way of feeling a sense of security by caring for someone else. But again, it can go overboard. And so at the end of the year, think of ways to care for yourself. And perhaps as you care for yourself, you care for others at the same time. And finally, the celebrity, who would not be pleased to be at the end final, but perhaps the most important for them is to shine. They want to be centerpiece. They deal with anxiety by going out, being the life of the party, having their social media show them as the star they truly are. And while, again, they can also be accused of selfishness, it's actually a great service they do by being role models. They show everyone how to elevate their lives, how to enjoy life, how to shine, how to be a star. And the star typically is someone who guides us. So the celebrity and their star persona, their great charisma, is something so valuable. And for themselves, as long as they can shine, they indeed feel secure, and it's a way for them to deal with anxiety. The celebrity is unhappy if they have to dim their light. It then induces anxiety in them. So it's good to let the celebrity shine, whether it's a party or something else. On the downside, sometimes it can become an obsession where just outside appearances belie inner emptiness or anxiety that has not been properly dealt with, that the appearance, the show becomes almost like an addiction. But again, it shouldn't be looked down upon, this need of the celebrity to shine, but rather than being a negative, it's a wonderful, wonderful energy that the celebrity brings to others, and that allows them in turn to feel their very best. It's almost as if once they become this persona, they step into it. You have all heard of Marilyn Monroe, of course, as she walked down a street in Beverly Hills with a friend years ago when she was alive, and no one recognized her. And then she said to her companion, "Do you want to see her?" And before his eyes, she transformed herself into the star. And it's like an inner transformation. She brought this out, the star persona, and all of a sudden everyone recognized her and had their eyes on her, and everyone was, of course, elated. There was Marilyn Monroe. It created a stir. It made everyone happy. But it's almost like they can turn it on or off because it's a persona they create. Like some of you may have heard of Cary Grant, the great matinee idol, one of the most charming stars of the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s. He famously said, "Everyone wants to be Cary Grant. Even I want to be Cary Grant." So the celebrity often knows that there's a split, there's a persona, and there's another person behind that. But the persona allows the other person behind it to see their potential. It's as though the star persona allows them to see a vision of who they could be and can be that really is so beneficial, not just to themselves, but also to others who see them modeling a person and a lifestyle that they can also emulate and aspire to and lift them up. So for the celebrity, plan your vacation, of course, and the holidays where you can shine so wonderfully, but also plan for January, as perhaps there's a downfall and perhaps the other person that hides behind the celebrity persona feels depressed or let down. And remember, the star persona is you. It's not fakery. It is you. And so to allow yourself to be that and to luxuriate in this persona you have created, and that is really part and parcel of who you are, because not everyone can be a celebrity. And by the way, there are introverted celebrities as well. Not every celebrity is super outgoing, but they have this need to shine, to bring out the best in themselves, to model something to others, and get great satisfaction by this creation of this persona that is part and parcel of who they are, but who they also create. So enjoy the vacation of the holidays if you have vacation, but plan ahead to deal with anxieties, whether it's political anxieties, whether it's anxieties about the end of the year, anxieties about not having accomplished as much as you hoped for this year, but then look back and see the long game of your accomplishments and deal with anxiety as we come in the new year. And remember, anxiety is your ally, not your enemy. And I see you soon.